Remember when video games were affordable? Yeah, me either. The idea of finding a bunch of uncommon and rare games shoved into the corner of a thrift store is long gone. Now, if you want that loose copy of Chrono Trigger, you better put up about half the price of a brand new console. Complete in box, that'll be a full PS5 Pro, please. Or a little bit of that emulation, because there's no way I'm spending $300 on a CDI and another slick grand for a copy of Zelda's Adventure. No, sir. Although we might talk about it today, because truly, who was this for?
I said this is my cave, mine. Go away. Take nothing. It's all mine.
The answer? Europeans and PAL regions. I've had enough of y'all telling me my prices are wrong, so now we're crossing the seas to embark on the European extreme. I'm talking rare and expensive PAL exclusives. Things Americans have never heard of and weird Italian-made Sailor Moon tie-ins. What, you haven't heard of Asterix and Obelix, the second highest selling comic book series after One Piece? Yeah, that's not a joke. Well, it's time to get learned. So yo, it's Austin, and today we're talking about foreign economy, rare and expensive PAL exclusives that in all probability you'll never own. Games that not only weren't released in the States, but also fetch a fair price. Some stuff I'm incredibly jealous over, others not so much. I'm lucky that Crazy Frog Racing is so cheap. We've got a whole bunch of games I've never touched on before to talk about today, so feel free to kick it back with dinner or something. Maybe one by today's sponsor and something I'm using all the time, Cook Unity. Let's talk about food. We all need it, especially good, fresh, and local bites. Well, Cook Unity is a service that'll deliver high-quality meals from award-winning chefs all over the States. I'm talking people you see on TV, Food Network alums. Every dish is labeled with a bunch of information, including who made it and how to cook it. Cook Unity chefs offer up a wide range of meals with over 7 different dietary preference filters, including vegan, paleo, and gluten-free options. There's a ton to pick from, over 350 a week, with one of my favorites recently being the chickpea tikka masala by Chase Evans. There's plenty of delicious Indian meals here, which is something you probably wouldn't expect being good for one of these delivery boxes, but hey, it really is. Meat or no meat, it's always tasty. They're always simple to prepare, just follow the instructions on the front, toss it in the microwave or oven, and it's done within minutes. With Cook Unity, you're not limited in what you get to eat each week. On the website, you can pick from a different batch, and it's really simple. Our box also had chicken katsudon and turkey and poblano tacos. All of these packed with flavor and any useful nutrition info on the box so I can make sure I'm staying within my day's goals. The subscription's easy, super flexible, and you can pause at any time for any reason. It's the time saver. So if any of this sounds good, and it is, I have a special deal for anyone watching. Head on over to cookunity.com/Austin50 or click the link in the description and use the code Austin50 to get 50% off your first order. Give it a shot. Thanks to Cook Unity for the sponsor, but for now, we need to head into unfamiliar territory. Look, I'm old by gamer standards, but when it comes to PAL exclusives, it's like the Wild West. I know we just passed Halloween and all, but how much do you like Christmas? Are you willing to pay $1,100 USD for a boxed copy of Daze Before Christmas? The Mega Drive Australian exclusive banger. Celebrate the journey to Christmas with the developers of Conan Exiles. Daze Before Christmas is bizarre. Not only because it didn't reach Prime Consumer Central, but also because it's totally fine. This came out both on the Genesis and Super Nintendo, but the Mega Drive version is worth a pretty penny. So, what do? You're Santa. You collect presents and stages to take to houses and repeat the loop like 5 times while smacking typical Christmas enemies like mice and tanks. And make sure to grab tea so you can transform into Anti-Claus. Go on a quick murderous rampage and then bring the children Tonka trucks and iPads. That is if you grabbed enough gifts. You can forget, although the children in London are getting plenty of toys even if I'm dropping them all over the place. Oh hey, look, the Tower Bridge over the River Thames. Yeah, heard enough of y'all last time. English is stupid.
River Thames.
This game is bizarre. I love that Santa and Anti-Claus have stomping animations for jumping on dudes. Like, look at these faces. Honestly, Days Before Christmas ain't too bad. It's well made, the tracks sound decent, and aren't exclusively Christmas music. The pre-stage reels are a little creepy though, which is strange considering this game is so easy the audience is exclusively babies. For real, who is this for? The North American port was canceled. The reviews were all 5 out of 10s, and I mean, who out there wants to play a Santa Claus platformer? I'd much rather play Alien Soldier. although I'm not very good at it, and I don't think I'd be willing to shell out $180 just to get my butt kicked over and over. Alien Soldier is one of those banger treasure releases that came out late in the Mega Drive lifespan, too late for their North American release, being relegated to the Sega channel, and I love the idea of this thing. Alien Soldier is hard, like incredibly difficult. It was marketed as a game explicitly for the hardest of hardcore, like Gunstar Hero, starring a cool alien eagle dude who has to challenge an endless wave of insanity. NTSC regions did get to play this with several ports, and you can pick it up digitally, for a little bit longer anyway. Literally, as I'm writing this, Sega decided to announce that they'd be delisting a ton of stuff from their Genesis Mega Drive collections, so I guess we can expect the new Sega Ages any day now. Maybe this time it'll come with Flink. No, sorry, I mean the Mega Drive port. The Misadventures of Flink doesn't seem real. Developed by Psygnosis in 1994, Flink has you playing as Flink, a kid wizard guy who can craft spells by putting together random ingredients. It's incredibly slow paced, and you take hits Sonic style, as in if you don't have any potions, you're dead in a single hit. Meaning you'd better get used to his weird momentum based movement and not accidentally clipping the slightly wrong side of an enemy. The Mega Drive version of this has beautiful sprite work. The music is very unlike anything you'd normally see from this generation, with tempo and volume changes. It's also just so painfully sluggish to play by today's standards. A boxed copy of the PAL version will run you around $200 or 150 pounds, which is definitely too much to pay, but also you're not gonna find anything else like this. Just be ready to die a lot. There's a lot of PAL exclusives from the retro days that I don't have too much to speak on. Several platformers and beat-em-ups with minimal things happening, like Whirlo. What the is Whirlo? Released only in Europe and Japan, this here's the sequel to a game called Valkyrie no Bokan. This thing starts with Whirlo living his fun Whirlo life before his kid gets some anti-Whirlo disease, and then he's gonna run off and impale every living creature to find a cure. That includes the ground. Whirlo is freaking hard, didn't review very well, and a loose copy will run you upwards of $200. Is anyone buying? I have no idea, but one look at the cover and I'd look the other way. Same with Hebereki's Popoito. I think I'm saying that right? Sorry, the PAL Saturn disc. Yo, what is this? The answer is a long-running series of games from a series that never hit the States until recently with a brand new sequel. Developed by Sunsoft, you might know this as Euphoria the Saga, something that looks suspiciously like a Nintendo platformer, even more with the sequel Euphoria 2 looking all Wii U. These games are pretty cute. Most of them fetch a decent sum, with Euphoria loose rounding 100, and Hebereki's Popoito, a clear Puyo Puyo clone, doing about the same. I find it bizarre that I went my entire adult life without knowing this entire franchise existed. It's just PAL only. The new one ain't bad either, and thankfully, that cover didn't get all westernified. Sunsoft actually released a bunch of games that never hit the States, such as Mr. Gimmick, but I really wish it did. Yeah, this is sick. And no, that's not Whirlo. He's not back. It's different. Mr. Gimmick, or rather Gimmick, is a super dope late NES platformer that released a few years into the Super Nintendo's lifespan. It also only hit Scandinavia outside of Japan, meaning an incredibly specific selection of people were even allowed to play this at launch, and it's also one of the most underrated games from that era. You wouldn't be able to tell from the English cover though. Mr. Gimmick looks sick, brother. Sunsoft purposefully buffed up the staff of Gimmick in order to try and compete with the Super Nintendo, and it's obvious. The visuals are super detailed, the soundtrack rivals some of Konami's best, and the whole gimmick allows for some really interesting platforming. The main character, Yume Taro, can conjure up stars to throw around that can be used as weapons or for platforming, so you can skip sequences of levels like this. And I just think that's pretty cool. It's not a very long game, there's not much of a legacy besides a few re-releases, remakes, and a brand new sequel, but definitely something to think about a whole bunch. Honestly, we could spend all day just talking about rare retro stuff. There's a bunch of random Brazilian and PAL exclusive Sega Master System ports of games like Ninja Gaiden. And nothing on the original, of course, but still a cool release that's pretty high quality for the Master System. 90 boxed. Don't forget Outrun 3D, a game I can't really show off off here without 3D glasses. 100 to 190 depending on which version. And don't forget over $400 for a boxed copy of Streets of Rage 2 for the SMS. Yeah, Americans really didn't care for the Master System, huh? A lot of Mega Drive exclusives too. Second Samurai by Psygnosis was released on that and the Amiga, but never overseas, and that'll run you a small round of groceries. Zero Wing, the basis for one of the first and most popular memes of all time, All Your Base Are Belong to Us, which is still funny, and this game has a dope soundtrack, costs similarly. I never actually played Zero Wing until this video, and yeah, I mean, it's okay. There's a ton of shmups from this era that didn't make it stateside, like Parodius. Sorry, not sexy Parodius, just Parodius. Created by Konami, Parodius is in the same vein as their other cute-em-ups, all parodies of Gradius, hence the name. Parodius is lighthearted, the enemies are often goofy, sporting 20-block thigh gaps. It's the basis for its own parody, Choaniki. There's a lot of horizontal shmups starring weird creatures, giant half-naked people, and sound effects so peculiar I don't recommend playing this in the living room with guests over, unless that's how you goons roll.
Oh, I don't think so.
Well, Parodius hit PAL regions on the Super Nintendo, Game Boy, NES, and a compilation game with Fantastic Journey for the PlayStation 1 and Saturn. Most of these go for a pretty penny, with the PlayStation 1 title ringing in 120 boxed. And I think I might want to buy this one. They're just solid shoot 'em ups, good for a laugh. The Oji-sama laugh. I don't think shmups were very popular outside of Japan and I guess PAL regions, which would probably explain why the States never got Keio Flying Squadron 2 for the Sega Saturn. It seems like they were close though, considering this dub.
Instead, I'll give you something much better.
Really?
Merry Christmas!
Keio Flying Squadron 2 is not actually a shmup. It's completely different to the original. Flying Squadron was a Sega CD side-scrolling shmup the entire time. That title was wacky, starred stereotypical 90s cutscenes and voice acting while being genuinely funny in spots. Maybe not so good, but the goofs are stuff of legend, especially considering it'll cost you over $2,500 for a boxed copy. The sequel decided that flying should only happen half the time. The United States said, we no longer want this, probably because we hate the Sega Saturn, and Keio Flying Squadron 2 was born.
As always, I get the last laugh.
I don't know if I like or hate this one. Developer Victor Entertainment is mostly a Japanese music publisher who had a brief stint with creating video games. That includes Super Star Wars, by the way. Keio and its sequel definitely have a lot going on in that department. The music is high quality, the animated cutscenes are bright, maybe a little also random, but entertaining. However, the platforming gameplay sure feels worse than the original. You're controlling resident doofus Rami Nani Hikari, who can only get powerful in a bunny suit as she embarks on a quest smashing people with hammers, parasols, riding dragons, riding trains into volcanoes. Yeah, explaining this one's gonna make me sound insane, but it is packed with an undeniable charm. I just wish the control schemes weren't so rigid. Rigid like Rami's expression, who sits there idly with one emotion on her face.
What the fuck?
There's a lot to love with Keio Flying Squadron 2. It's nice to look at, it's funny, it's one or two of a kind, and it sure loves Japanese culture. Interested? Well, get ready to shell out $250 for a raw, probably scratched up, slightly damp Sega Saturn disc. Over $440 in box. I guess that's a steal compared to the original being, you know, $2,000 cheaper. Something retro games market sucks.
Hey, that's not nice!
As it turns out, that's universal. It doesn't matter the actual rarity, the developer, or even the console that it's on, there's gonna be some kind of oddity that makes you go, what? Especially when you look at that price. For instance, there is no dimension where anyone should be paying $125 for the Xbox 360 version of My Horse and Me 2.
Oh, it's okay, little girl.
Just no. But even then, this purchase seems sensible when put up against something like Cindy's Fashion World. I hope you got a spare, I don't know, $1,200 lying around.
Hi girls, this is Diana. I'm super cool. Let's go out. Wow, let's go girls.
Not Not only is this 2 degrees away from horror copy pasta, but it's spending a month's rent plus on a dress-up gallery, coloring book, and Game & Watch tier gameplay when you could get Panzer Dragoon Saga boxed for around half the price. Cindy's Fashion World is the definition of a bad decision. You might feel the same about Taxi 2 on the Dreamcast. While only in the lower 100s, it's weirdly a tie-in to a very popular French film from the time, Taxi 2, and its weird blend of 3D visuals popping in over actual pictures of the countryside all bit crushed and rotating wheel PNGs messes me up. It's uncanny. And almost everything I just said is also applicable to Zelda's Adventure. Yeah, the CDI game. Uh-oh.
There will be no more viewing tonight.
Who's this old guy? What is Tolamac? What happened to Hyrule? Screw it, I'm just gonna call it Toblerone. Story is old as time here, but Nintendo gave Philips Interactive the rights to make a series of games for the Philips CDI, and all of them were big ol' stinkers. Huge memes too. I have multiple friends who will hear lamp and or rope and immediately YouTube poop themselves into a Morshu monologue.
It's yours, my friend, as long as you have enough rubies.
PAL exclusive Zelda's Adventure didn't meme for a reason. Ditching the bizarre MS Paint looking art style, they replaced it with an FMV wizard and then a few stills of what is supposed to be Zelda. I'm not convinced they have more than this single picture of her actually. It just kind of wiggles around before throwing us into, and I'm not kidding, 5.5 minutes of explaining how to interface with every aspect of the menus because I think they realized what they had done. I like that you can totally miss your starting weapon and immediately get killed if you don't go one screen to the right. Also, that's not gonna help much with hitboxes like these. Yeah, this feels bad. On top of that, you got pretty nonsensical map design and an incredible amount of loading between each individual screen. The visuals are so hard to look at, and it's hard to tell which way to go without some kind of map or walkthrough. And thankfully, some NPCs will give you hints and tell you what to do.
I've failed in my mission. Lord, this enemy is coming.
I don't hate this. I mean, don't get me wrong. Zelda's Adventure is 100% unfettered, crusty ass, but the experience of playing this over the internet in a group call, while one of us was looking at maps and walkthroughs and the other was suffering and everyone was laughing, was kind of a good time. Is Zelda's Adventure Ksoge? I don't think it's good enough, but it is close. I just kind of wish there was more CDI-ness to the whole thing. I think it was cool that they actually attempted to make a real Zelda-style adventure considering the trash fires of the other two, but it also lacks the charm. It's very dry, very cryptic, very dropping audio every 4 seconds for screen transitions, and somehow became a bit of a holy grail. Since Zelda's Adventure only hit Europe, it had a much smaller release, and physical copies of this in-box go upwards of 1100 USD, which is quite a bit for what you get. This and Cindy's Fashion World are fighting for the title of worst, most expensive video game. So if you feel like making an absolute dog shit decision, pick up a copy of this, another $300 to $500 for the console, and embark to save Toblerone today. Apparently Tolamac is just Camelot backwards. Why not just Hyrule?
Lord, I couldn't stop her. Get ready to fight!
Speaking of Ksoge, Michigan Report from Hell.
Fire! Get it!
Michigan Report from Hell is a game that I know mostly from its horrible English voice acting, and I do mean horrible.
Keep quiet.
Behind you! There's a
What a bloody mess, huh?
Why is she up to... Damn it!
This is actually one of the early releases from Grasshopper, who have made a bunch of good stuff, and this is definitely a video game. You're going through this survival horror scenario in the first person as you're the cameraman of a news crew. You watch a bunch of nonsense unfold while pointing at things, all while there's not much direction on what to do or how things play out. I guess it makes sense because there's a few different endings, but it's hard to get over the, well...
A monster!
Maybe not for me, but I can see how this has become a staple for a lot of people with bad, campy horror video games. That notoriety has helped it shoot up to well over $400 complete, by the way, which is a lot. That's $400 to watch bizarre body horror, $400 for several replaceable news reporters hiding out in yucky Michigan, and $400 to hear Briscoe yell over and over. There's more games I'd like to get into another time. Sword of Etheria hit Japan and European regions only. Japanese players might know it as simply Oz, considering it's what happens when you make The Wizard of Oz into a maybe subpar but incredibly intriguing action game. I'm really surprised Konami didn't make the effort to bring this stateside, but a PAL copy runs around 140, so only Europeans get to juggle baddies on the yellow brick road. But now, for something I bet maybe 3 or 4 of y'all have heard of, Ra 1. Anyone know that? Ra 1 is an Indian superhero Bollywood film from 2011, which is an incredible string of words together that I am wholly unqualified to talk about. It was notoriously an expensive film, the highest budget in India at the time of its release. However, it made a decent amount of money, lots of awards, and wouldn't you know, got itself a video game. Multiple, but only one of them cost over $300. Ra 1, the game for the PlayStation 3. Yeah, a PAL PS3 exclusive. Let's take a look.
My powers unleashed.
Oh my god, Ra 1 does not feel real. The whole thing with the movie is that it takes place in a world where a video game villain escapes his video game to hunt down the dude who beat him. Something, he kills his dad. It's a salty run back of a lifetime. The game adaptation was actually published by Sony Europe, and what they made was a Power Stone clone. Just one without any of the whole fun part. Instead, we've got battles that end in seconds with people screaming the same 3 lines over and over.
Energy blast!
Energy
Eliminate! Energy blast!
Want some more?
I love that despite the film being the most expensive to produce of all time at its release, the game is relegated to these image slideshows. They're pretty funny though. This whole thing is a mess. The best way to beat any level is to stun lock enemies in a corner and bash them into an endless pattern. I literally finished the final boss this way. Although first it took me forever to get past this dude with a gun. It's a 1-shot 1-kill for both of yous, but for some reason I would not spawn with the gun in or near it. Other videos on the internet had the gun ready to go for a frame 1 kill, but no, I had to play this game of chicken and hope he didn't decide to frame 1 reflect me. I lost like 100 times and 1 on accident and forgot to record that, so yeah, whoops.
Is that a tear I see?
Is that a tear I see?
Energy blast!
Ra 1, the game, is hilariously bad. It might be one of the worst things we've played on this channel. Sony Europe had high hopes for it too. They bundled the PlayStation 2 version of it with brand new PS2 consoles. Ra 1 was a big deal, just maybe not on the PlayStation 3. I'll tell you right now, I'm never gonna forget some of these voiceovers.
You think you can keep up with me?
Good deed for today. Kill you.
Engaging enemy.
$300. Ra 1 is a big ol' licensed game, but for now, let's go into actual licensed games with anime. But anime games that didn't make their way to NTSC regions. There's a lot more of these than you'd think, actually, but I am surprised we didn't get either of the Sailor Moon releases. Sailor Moon for the Super Nintendo, exclusive to France. I played this classic SNES beat 'em up via emulation countless times, and it is what you would expect. Very simple, very easy, very single button, side-scrolling beat 'em up, probably not for anyone besides kids. 200 in box. Woo! It's a pretty cool box though. I like that Sailor Moon is a single word. But that's not all. While that game hit Japan, the next didn't. That's right, I'm talking about the PAL exclusive Sailor Moon video game created by Bandai Namco Europe. Sailor Moon La Luna Splend for the Nintendo DS, only available in Italy. This is to Sailor Senshi fans what Legacy of Goku was to Dragon Ball fans, I suppose, but not anywhere near as exciting. You take turns playing as one of the original scouts, going into people's dreams or psyche and collecting gems. It's an incredibly basic puzzle platformer, giving Millen's Secret Castle vibes, but even less intricate. All the backgrounds look the same, the movement's slow, and this is absolutely only intended for young kids who love the IP. Or grown-ass adults who are willing to spend nearly $300 for it boxed. It's crazy that to this day, America's never gotten a Sailor Moon video game. Well, but besides the 3D Adventures of Sailor Moon. Dragon Ball has the same treatment from the early days, with a few titles hitting stores over there like Super Butoden, Hyper Dimension, and La Legend Saiyan. Feels weird to know that the States were the very last ones to latch on to the most popular anime from the 90s, but hey, I'll trade up the Bobby's World video game for Hyper Dimension any day of the week. But speaking of Italy and embracing anime, I sure wish I got to play Time Bokan Yattaman. I mean, look, it's nothing too crazy. It's a vertical scrolling shmup where you play as the bad guys, the Dorambo gang, Doranjo, Boyaki, Kenny, Tanzura, the ever-present anime trope of the Three Stooges, the Team Rockets, the Grandest Gang from Nadia. You're fighting against the good guys with their series of mecha, and all the action is solid. You pick from several Villain of the Week mech contraptions, each with their own skill set and giant transformations, and I love that if you take enough damage, you play as the three tolling away on a little 3-person bike. This game rules. You just gotta be prepared to shell out a hefty premium for it. Even the Japanese copy goes for $80. I guess people like that time Bokan. And speaking of robots, Gundam. You know what rules? Dynasty Warriors Gundam. Specifically 3. I played so much of this. It turns out when you mix Dynasty Warriors and giant anime robots, it's a recipe for my heart. But for some reason, the 4th installment, Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn, was only released digitally in the States, meaning that if you want to play it on your US PlayStation 3 in modern times, you're gonna have to go through a stupid amount of hoops. I'm talking gift cards on websites that break half the time, slowly navigating the worst interface of all time. At some point, eventually Sony's gonna shut down the PlayStation 3 store. It's gonna suck ass, and then the only way to play it will be to spend around $150 for a physical PAL copy. That's pricier than all 3 of the other games combined, by the way. I haven't had enough time with this one myself, but honestly, they should just make another with Witch from Mercury. Just do it. I just wish the US got a copy of Gundam Reborn. Actually, I just want a new Gundam Musou. Breakers 4 ain't doing it for me. But now that we've tackled anime, how about a little bit of that European anime? A lot of which didn't make its way out west either. Look, I'm just saying, it can't be overstated just how wildly popular Asterix is. I guess this would be kind of like French Garfield? Just starring a Gaulish warrior way back in fictional 50 BC. Him and his buddy Obelix, to my understanding, are just 2 dudes doing things around the world, embarking on all sorts of adventures adjacent to the Roman Republic. This thing has been going on since the 50s with different creative teams, artists. Europeans love them some Asterix, I guess, which also means you're gonna have adaptations, cartoons, films, feature-length live-action box office bombs, none of which I've ever seen stateside, but I do remember a few video games. For some reason, I owned Asterix and the Great Rescue on the Genesis, which I mostly remember for its soundtrack being pretty cool. That and playing as Obelix, a very large man, and smacking dudes with his belly. However, this is easily found for under $10 loose in the States. The Master System port will easily go for around $100. This one's not as good as the Mega Drive version. A lot of the level design has you picking a path at random, hoping you'll find a key to open the next bit, and probably backtracking a lot. It's not too challenging, although pretty lengthy for an old school platformer, because of all the backtracking. The holy grail for Asterix games are actually a pair of Atari titles. Simply Asterix for the Atari 2600 is exactly what it looks like, but a loose cart will run you 125 USD with a fully boxed copy going for well over $400. It's not even a real Asterix game, it's basically a conversion of Taz, featuring the Mustache Man himself. It's a bit more common in Europe, although the Atari ST kind of visual novel versions of Asterix and the Magic Carpet frequently go in the 200s. When it comes to PAL exclusives though, Asterix and the Power of the Gods for the Mega Drive would be the one to beat. Relatively cheap loose, but over $100 in box. Power of the Gods is a game I don't really understand. I love that all of its music are adaptations of classic tracks like William Tell. You again get to play as Asterix and Obelix, but this one has more of an open feel. There's an overworld map to explore with different items you need to obtain to unlock new areas, so it's a lot less straightforward. It's also developed by Core, the people behind Chuck Rock and Tomb Raider, which I was not expecting. Seems like no one gets to escape the licensed game Vortex. Yeah, this one's fine. I'm sure the 15 American Asterix superfans have already imported this one, and considering there's a new Asterix and Obelix series hitting Netflix next year, maybe I'll check it out. I don't know. Is Asterix even worth watching? Europeans, please respond. It did last a whole lot longer than The Legend of Prince Valiant. Sorry, the cartoon anyways. Not the comic strip that's been around since the 30s. Yeah, apparently there's a bunch of these. The Legend of Prince Valiant was a show that ran on the Family Channel back in the early 90s, starring Prince Valiant. The whole thing was about an exiled prince who wanted to become one of the Knights of the Round Table, and they did so without getting too wacky with it. Pretty wild for the time when every other show and their mom was talking down to audiences like the concept of recycling was otherworldly. Well, we've got got 2 video games here, the first of which actually released in the States. The Legend of Prince Valiant for the Game Boy. A box copy of the PAL version of this goes for $170 complete, which isn't that uncommon for Game Boy. But the US version had a different approach. Take that smug-looking Valiant off the main menu and swap in some generic knights, we got Kingdom Crusade. Also a pricey boxed game. The cover for the American version has gotta be one of the worst things I've ever seen. You can barely see the name of the game. What is this? The gameplay itself? It's interesting. It's like this hybrid of strategy and action beat 'em up, where you navigate an overworld map screen by screen and attempt to take over your opponent's territory. It doesn't feel good at all. Although when you die, you die. Yeah, Kingdom Crusade. The other release, the PAL exclusive and better game, a word I use very loosely, would be The Legend of Prince Valiant for the NES. One of these, huh? Developed by Ocean Software, the people who brought us Bad Dudes and Waterworld for the Virtual Boy, The Legend of Prince Valiant for the Nintendo Entertainment System is a total mixed bag. It combines platforming with multi-tiered exploration and puzzle solving. You need a key, go check different rooms and come back. But watch out for all the insta-kills. Yeah, okay. Beyond platforming, you've got first-person bow shooting levels where you get hit so often that I don't know how you make it through this without an infinite health cheat. No matter the perspective, everything is out to get Mr. Valiant here with his weird walkie jaunt. It definitely looks like he's stepping forward with the same foot. Oh, and get used to the single stage song that plays constantly. And I do mean the entire time. For like 30 seconds or so, and then, yeah, I'm ready to die. Maybe in a dramatic bear fight. It's a relatively cheap cart, but if you're wanting that bad boy full in box, it'll cost you around 80 USD, and at the height of COVID, it was hitting 150. Or we can go back even further. Yeah, I'm talking older than Prince Valiant, older than DC Comics, back when the world was black and white. The year is 1929, and straight out of Belgium would be a brand new, widely popular European manga character starting a story that ran for nearly 60 years, The Adventures of Tintin. Famously, Tintin only had a small amount of exposure and popularity outside of Europe. As far as I remember being alive, the 2011 film had decent success, and we saw graphic novels from time to time, but he was never fully taking the world by storm. Which makes sense why we never saw a single game. Meaning we've got decades and decades of Tintin adventures sealed away in the PAL regions, with some of them being notoriously expensive and rare. For instance, Adventures of Tintin Prisoners of the Sun for the Super Nintendo, boxed 120, directly based off the book from 1949 and using gameplay similar to their previous release, Tintin in Tibet. Prisoners of the Sun has you trying to investigate an illness/curse that's fallen over the professors. Look, I'm not gonna pretend I'm a Tintin expert. I found out about this guy today, but I do know that gameplay like this, where you die in 3 hits, isn't very fun. Each level has you trying to navigate whatever nonsense while competing against a tight timer up in the corner. Take too long to think about something and it's back to the start. Some of the visuals in Prisoners of the Sun are actually nice. The sprite scaling does work well, and it has this incredibly vivid cartoony look that you don't get from a lot of games from this era. There's a good amount of variety, with some levels having you drive a car or sliding around on a train. It's cool in spots. Is it a hidden gem? Probably not. It's a little too frustrating for that, but I don't think it's bad either, which is kinda how I feel about Tintin Destination Adventure for the PlayStation 1. Tintin in the third dimension! Kinda, still mostly 2D. Destination Adventure would actually be the last traditional Tintin video game before its 2011 reboot film getting some stuff on the PlayStation 3, and it decides to tackle a whole bunch of stories at once. It's essentially Tintin, Snowy, and friends watching his adventures on tape and reliving those glory days. It then quickly becomes an isekai where you get sucked into the projector and have to do things for real. Anyone else remember when I went to Mueller's Domain and couldn't progress to the next level without collecting every single collectible in a single run? Destination Adventure is, like the previous game, okay at best, maybe a bit worse. It has has a decent variety of levels with different outfits, and some where you drive vehicles too, but the controls are so ass. You have to drive forward and collect these little tokens while dodging obstacles. And the idea of pulling it all off in your first go to just go to the next level is not gonna happen. Nothing like immediately replaying a stage just to make sure to grab all those floaty little MacGuffins. This whole thing is kind of a drab, a $175 drab too, so if you're picking this one up, there's a high chance it's not to play it, unless you really want to drift tanks on the moon. If you're gonna play it, make sure you do your best in the boss fights. It tries to beat you by subjecting you to noises like this. All right, one more game, and no more beating around the bush. I don't know what this is. I don't know where it came from. All I know is that it was produced by the current CEO of Ubisoft, Yves. Have you ever heard of Evil Twin Cyprian's Chronicles?
You wanna know if the party's over? Well, yeah. Party's over.
Yeah, me either. But the Dreamcast PAL version of this cost about as much as Project Justice, which just sounds fake.
I don't even know what you're talking about. You don't even exist.
Evil Twin is a 3D platformer that I hate looking at. It's like American McGee's Alice fell into a blender with the movie Child's Play, a Limp Bizkit and Korn album cover, and what we got is a game where you play as a stinky version of Chrono from Chrono Trigger. I do not like looking at this at all, but it sure is interesting. Evil Twin Cyprian's Chronicles was originally gonna come out earlier into the Dreamcast lifespan in 1999, but budget constraints held it back way further than you'd think. It actually popped out on the PlayStation 2 and PC months before the previous gen, and I guess they didn't print many of them because it's rocking a high price. The game itself, man, is wacky.
You have an infinite number of different speeds between standing still and your maximum speed.
Yeah, that's the best yet. You're telling me I can walk, run, and stand still? No shit.
Oh, edgy and fart sniffy. Let's go. You take control of Cyprian, a child with an evil twin who can transform for gameplay reasons. There's a whole lot of dialogue, and I mean a whole lot, just taking up a bulk of the intro. Seriously, you're stuck watching these ugly dudes just yap for like 20 minutes before you're allowed to do much of anything. And then when you get your hands on the controls, the level design is so uninteresting that it's super easy to get lost. There's no map, there's no indicators, just a pause menu telling you vaguely what to do. So if you're completely dumbfounded on where to go, wandering around the low-res background of an episode 1 pod racer stage, I do not blame ya. Thankfully, there is a pretty decent soundtrack to keep you company. It creates this weird balance to the overtly ugly look of everything else, almost like it's at odds with itself. The gameplay's not great either. You mostly attack with a slingshot or a running ground pound, the first of which triggers a long invulnerability period, the second of which is impossible to aim after you initiate it. Evil Twin is aggravating to control and play at all times, which is a shame because I think the narrative they were trying to tell has potential, at least when the writers weren't being oh so 2001.
You must know that the village is forbidden to hold dues.
I didn't know you were a racist.
This is the edgiest child of all time. But to be fair, yeah, they were definitely doing that. Evil Twin at the very least is something. While I personally don't really like the vibe, it's got a unique thing going on. The voiceovers are pretty irritating. The translation from its French origin seems a bit edgy, and controlling this thing moment to moment sucks. Little Chucky's always so small on the screen, the alter ego's powers feel unexplained and random, and worst of all, I can't play this without thinking about Creed album covers, and that's not a place I wanna be. Evil Twin. If you have to try it, pick up the PlayStation 2 version, it's cheap as hell. Or like, you know, don't.
It's just one of those days.
So there we have it, a bunch of rare and expensive games you'll never own, some of which you probably shouldn't. European Extreme Edition. Let me know if I missed some down in the comments. I had to drop Rapid Reload, which sucks because it's kind of cool, but there's always next time. If you liked today's video, check out the sponsor Cook Unity and grab yourself some good bites today. If you want to support us directly, check out the Patreon, hit up the Discord server, buy a t-shirt over at the Pixel Empire, or just write a comment. We've been on a roll of videos lately, and I'd like to keep that going. Also, yes, the thing I mentioned at the very end of last video will be happening, whether I like it or not. So I'm gonna head out for now. Happy November, or whatever. I've been Austin, and catch me next time when we test the limits of human patience. Thank you so much for watching. Special Patreon shout out to Aaron Kwolek, Alfred Correa, Benna Oswald, Blackfoot Ferret, Blake Thomas, Charles Rosner, Cheeks, Chloric Fox, Chris Shelton, DX Buster, Dylan Snyder, Fragile Traveler, Hey Quiggles, Idlevice, J Roos, Jacoby Fitzpatrick, Kevin Zanowski, Pierre, Platinum Rose, Pacha Bear, Rare Find It, Ryan Talbert, and Vox. Thank you all so much for your generous support. So I got my copy of Funko Fusion in the mail. It's just sitting there. I haven't even opened it yet, so I don't, maybe someone bamboozled me. Maybe I open it up and it's a copy of a good game, but that wouldn't be very fun to watch now, would it? So wish me luck on this journey. Have a good month. I hope everyone is having good time with video game. Okay, bye.